Yevgenia, I want to go back to the 24th of February to start this conversation, because we're all sitting here celebrating an artwork, but this was not an artwork in the beginning. In the beginning, you decided to write, and you decided to do so on the 24th of February. Why?
First of all, I want to just to say thank you to everybody who made this work possible. Yes, they are not present here, but just thinking about people who were supporting it in Ukraine, and to all who have spoken, and to Sylvia and to you, Bjorn. It's you cannot do anything like that by yourself. It's an effort of a lot of people, and before I start, I must think about all of them. Especially about two artists, Uliana Bychenkova and Dana Kosbina, who also stay behind this work. You have asked about 24th of February and how I started to write. Actually, today on this scene we were speaking about the day. What is one day and how long it could be. I was in Kiev at the 24th of February. I woke up as usually, maybe between 8 and 9 o'clock. I worked late till the night, and when I woke up, I saw unusual amount of phone calls on my telephone. Really strange people, strange people that are not connecting to each other called me, and I thought that something happened with somebody, and something unlucky, unhappy happened, and people are looking for me because I'm connected to this somebody who is in trouble, or maybe in accident. But another thought was, such an accident wouldn't be possible. It is not an accident that can connect such different people. It was like, actually, this first moment was already like from another kind of reality. It's like a different kind of reality, fantastic reality, was knocking on my door. And I decided, whom should I call back first? I looked through different names and remembered that my sister, Ukrainian singer and musician, has a very nice voice, and when she speaks, everything seems to be all right always. And I decided to call her, and she told me with her nice and calm and beautiful voice, haven't you read the news? War has started. And these words, they sound like, again, it is like completely, it sounds like it is impossible. And to me, who was reading news every day, many times of the day, reading analytical newspapers, reading political analysis, economical analysis, international newspapers in English, German, constantly, I couldn't believe that it is really happening. And then completely different feeling of the time started. This first day was so long, this 24th of February, that it seems I could write several books only during this first day. And because I reported from the Donbass for different media, actually as an artist more, because I created a photographic series in the mines on the edge of the war. In 2014 and 15, some German newspapers reached out to me and said, maybe you should write an analytical article for us. Even so, I am really not a political analyst. Just what do you think is happening and what is happening around you? And we were speaking, and then we changed the idea just to describing the reality, because it was like the whole life of the city. In this one day, one very long day, I have seen like it has been like deconstructed till the 2 o'clock at the day, 2 o'clock p.m. Coffee shops, restaurants were still open, And then they were closing one after each other, shops, restaurants. They were closing the windows. They were closing their doors. They were even closing the windows like living forever, the city. And cars, I live in the center of the Kiev on a very busy streets. They disappeared. And suddenly tanks, Ukrainian military tanks were just going through my street. And I decided to photograph it. And I approached this line of cars, military cars, like an exotica, like as if you are in the middle of a forest, a jungle in the moment. Because it looks it was such a powerful exotical look at this first day, these military cars in the center of our peaceful city. I tried to make a photograph, and of course, a person representing the government approached me and said, you know, you can kill people with this photograph. It was the first time when I understood that photography and anything that you used to do in the city is suddenly impossible to do in the city. And somebody approached me and said, maybe you will delete this photograph right now when I'm looking at you, or you will not put me in the situation when I should use some violence against you or arrest you, because it is dangerous, because nobody should know that these machines are going through this street. And I deleted, of course, these pictures immediately. And I was just, and my neighbors, they were also coming to the streets and also looking at this line of machines, silent, actually, without exchanging many words, just staring at it, staring at their new life.
And every day, I was one of these people who read every day your articles, as you know, or your entries, as you know. And you kept writing because you stayed in Kiev. It was a ritual. We always got it at the same time in our mailbox, so we knew it would come and we would read. But what did it mean for you to write knowing that you would write to an audience that mostly didn't understand anything from the war as they were so far from it?
I think that it is only, actually, that gave me the power to write at all, because German language was a foreign and it created a distance, and I understood that people around me, people from Kiev, they at the first days of the war, they were still living they saw their thoughts were in the situation of peace. So they first days, of course, nobody had weapons, and immediately I understood that it is a huge crime against international law, and only within the international solidarity we actually have any chance to stop it from happening, because it's actually it is a huge crime that was happening in Ukraine at that moment, but in my thoughts, in my understanding, it was already an international war theater that actually somehow happened with my life, with people in my neighborhood, with people from my city and my country that were at that moment in a huge danger. So it was important to build these bridges, actually, because maybe to think that somebody cannot. Actually, I couldn't think that you cannot be involved in it. So I was constantly thinking that there are people who might be not in such a danger as people in Ukraine right now, but they should be involved. And maybe I'm sure I was thinking that they are. Actually, I believed that everybody is actually involved.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, when we have a small story with this diary, because at a certain point we decided to represent Ukraine in Venice, together with the Office of the President and with the support of the President. And President opened this exhibition that we made, and he said something very important. He said there, and it's quite astonishing to think that a president who is at this time defending his country and needs every minute to, you know, concentrate on this war, has these 5 minutes to think about art. But he did, and he has. And he said why we need artists today is because artists can say things that we cannot say. They can bring words or they can bring images in ways that we as politicians or thinkers cannot bring. They can describe things that we cannot describe. And I think when we spoke about Venice and we decided to bring your diary to Venice, the diary wasn't finished. But it got another form. And I'm going there because, of course, we went through different forms before we ended in this. Can you tell us something about your decisions there and how it was different to show it like this and how this transformed the work for you?
It was actually very important because I was writing a diary, but I couldn't read it. I was also making a photography series. I decided I will make a small photography series every day. I was very careful, and of course, I was also not even publishing the most of my photographs at that moment, and I already had an accreditation of Ukrainian Ministry of military ministry, Defense Ministry of Defense. So it was legal. Yes, I thought that I saw this invitation as a big chance just to go through this diary, because actually the diary, its existence, was speaking to me about my inability to change the world, because I ended almost every second or every text with the idea that Ukrainian sky should be protected. And I asked to intervene in what is happening. I asked my readers to do anything to force politicians to intervene and to make this war stop right now or tomorrow. Actually, every day I understood that the crimes that are happening are more and more heading in the directions where you cannot find the words to describe them, where you cannot find any images to capture them. They are behind the possibility to be described. And every day I thought that if the world would be aware of it, this war will actually be ended in an hour or in the next day. So for me to work through this, my own documentation was actually to acknowledge my own very big failure and failure of my some imaginations of how politics works and international politics works and what actually can be accomplished and what not. And the decision was I was in exchange with Bjorn a lot how to show it, and the idea was actually to keep one day apart, each day apart from another day. And we exhibited this diary on a series of the tables, and a person who visited the exhibition could stand on each table and look at the photographs and read only one day entry. And for me it was important to divide these days, not to make it one whole, one endless story, divide one day from another, exactly because of what everybody was mentioning today, the importance of understanding that even one day of this conflict, it's one day more that it should be, that it is überflüssig. Now German words are coming into my head, that it should not happen, that this war actually should be stopped today, that the next entry should not be written, not by anybody.
You said when we were preparing, you said, I wrote this diary because every day is the last day. It was your very strong statement. Every day is the last day. And I think it's logical if we look today to what we have here, and then I will open it up to the audience. And it's nice, yeah, one more day is the disappointment of the last day not being the last, the previous day not being the last. And here we have a table which is physical. In Venice we had just a simple table with a simple text on it. Today we have a physical table. We have a text which has weight. We have a text that will disintegrate because there will be rain, it will oxidize, it will disappear. And we have only one table with one specific day. So I have millions of questions, but let's start about the very simple decision to make this table in metal and to let the metal oxidize. What does it mean for you?
That was actually the first idea. I even didn't know it would be a table, but I already was thinking that it should be a metal that will oxidize and corrode. Because of the ambition, actually, to destroy the ambition to have enough words to describe what is happening, to speak about silence, and to speak about actually the role of witnessing. This not really loud, but a voice that we always need to make some effort to hear. Voice of a real witness who is speaking out of his or her position, with his experience and vision about what is happening. Importance to listen to it, importance to make an effort to listen to it, and to remember that memory is very fragile and it will maybe not be able to just to capture the experience, and we will lose parts of the experience, already losing. And that's, I thought that this media can speak about that.
Because one of the things that struck me was, I think we are going out of our time. One of the things that struck me when reading and when rereading in Venice was I discovered I read everything but I forgot everything, and it was necessary to read again. Our inability to retain that information was very difficult. But my last question, and then I'll throw it open, is why did you choose this day? Why did you choose the 7th of March of all the days that you had?
I actually could choose another day, but that day was special. It was a day when I was even doubting if I should proceed writing, because it was already, I thought I was already kind of disappointing that nothing is changing, and in my view, war already has happened forever long and nobody has done anything to stop it. So I was already angry kind of with the whole world. And a friend, after I made this entry, written it, a friend called me and said to me, you know, you mentioned that these two postal workers who died at that day. It's so important that you have spoken about them, because these lives, they disappear in the war, and with more and more victims, and we forget how every first victim of this war, how incredible important is just to look in the process that this catastrophe of the war. No, I again, why I am not so sure when I'm speaking about it, because it's really hard to find right words to describe it. But at that day, two people in Ukraine tried to deliver pension to old Ukrainians. And my grandmother, who was very ill, she was 4 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, she was lying in her bed most of the time. She couldn't walk, and she was every month waiting for postal workers, Ukrainian postal workers, who were delivering pension to those who couldn't work and couldn't arrange taking the money from the bank, especially vulnerable people who were really waiting for this interaction with postal workers. And this kind of care was part of the lots of very small characteristics of warmth in Ukrainian society, of ability to care for each other. And in the war situation, where already war was happening for so long, which seems to me in March, two people decided in the danger to go and to deliver this pension, to go through this incredible danger where they could be easily killed. And they were easily killed just by Russian tank. They were shot during this process of delivery. And it was so shocking for me. It was one of the very deep shocks of these first days of the war, that I tried to write about it, try to find words to deliver the pain I experienced, because I immediately imagined ladies who were coming to my grandmother and gave her this pension, and she was very proud and waiting for them, and they always have this warm exchange between each other. And maybe people who don't live in Ukraine don't know this characteristic of Ukrainian society, this ability to keep to create care and warmth in very small gestures of everyday life. And I was thinking, if this warmth is so important that people are ready to go through the possibility to lose their lives just to keep this tradition, then maybe this country is... I felt again in love with Ukraine, with my own country, and and therefore I choose that day. And I think it's again, actually, the whole metal is connected to these two people, and to my wish that we not forget about them.
Thank you, Yevgenia. Perhaps there are questions from the audience. If you have a question, please stand up and...
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to ask you, how did you get the contact to Der Spiegel? And were you writing actually in original in German?
I was writing in German, and I didn't contact Spiegel. They contacted me at the first day. I described it. I was approached by different magazines and newspapers because I'm actually artist and writer, and they knew me from my previous work. And I was approached, and they said, try to write for us something, and maybe it will be something out of it. And I tried. It was actually the first. I was never writing literary text or just articles in German. It was my first attempt to do it.
But you got this prize, this Hauses der Kulturen der Welt in Germany.
Yeah, for my book translated in German, not by me.
Okay.
Any more questions? So if no more questions, then what leaves me is to thank you, Yevgenia, for a fantastic work. You know, not only the table, but really everything. And thank you for being here with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.